Mankind has always looked to the stars. Since time immemorial, the universe has been a source of fascination and fundamental questions. What else is out there? How was all this created? Where do we come from? It is our constant companion and has always held a very special fascination for us, the moon. We have sent probes to it, and humans have even walked on its surface. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. 5 more manned missions followed. The final footprints in the lunar dust were left by Eugene Cernan in December 1972. Welcome to Spacetime with Olish Walter, astronaut and scientist. He knows that incredible things await us in space. Humanity wants to return to the moon. It feels like a lost love reawakening. All major space nations are planning manned missions to the moon: China, Russia, America, but also Europe, Japan, and India. Probes are surveying and monitoring the moon more intensely than ever before. The goal is to venture deeper into space, perhaps even to Mars. And for such missions, Earth's satellite would be the ideal training ground. It is only a matter of time before humans once again set foot on the moon. Music, why go back to the moon, some may ask. We've already been there 50 years ago. That is of course true. But in the meantime, a lot has changed. We now believe there is ice at the poles, and ice means water. Water is essential for people to live on the moon. We also believe the moon has a certain inner structure, but we are not sure. For that reason alone, we need to go back. Competition. Competition is good for space travel because it stimulates innovation and business. While the 1960s race to the moon grew out of the Cold War, today's efforts have a stronger scientific character. The moon is being re-explored, surveyed, and mapped. A research station on the lunar surface would become humanity's new outpost in space. And the Earth's satellite is an attractive prospect for investors. Music, the moon, can be reached relatively quickly. You can get there and back in about a week. That's why you can achieve so much on the moon that helps us progress in technology, science, and as a stepping stone for deeper space exploration. So, there are many aspects of the moon that will be useful to us. The moon is only a 3-day journey from Earth. It is the perfect place for testing new space technologies. Rather than short visits, astronauts should stay there long term and work on research projects. It's almost like stepping outside your front door. The Apollo missions were carried out to prove we could do it technologically, in that case, the Americans. But if you want to go to Mars, you have to do much more. You can't just fly to the moon and say, look, we've done it. You have to show that a sustainable link between Earth and the moon can be created, for example, that a research station can be established where people can live for weeks or months. The International Space Station is currently humanity's scientific outpost in space. This greatest technology project is run by an international community of space nations. However, the space laboratory is approaching the end of its service life. New goals are being considered, and scientists are increasingly focusing on the moon. In 2007, the X Prize Foundation launched a competition for the first private landing on the moon, with prize money donated by Google. The task was to land a rover on the moon that could send images back to Earth. Such competitions have a long tradition. In 1919, hotel owner Raymond Ortigue offered $25,000 for the first non-stop flight from New York to Paris, which was won by Charles Lindbergh. The prize sponsors wanted to create incentives for new technologies and business fields independent of government institutions. Google would pay $20 million to the first team to achieve a soft landing on the moon and transmit images back. But what is that compared to the total cost of such a mission? The launch costs alone are between $30 and $50 million, plus the cost of technology. You need reliable engines, which only leading space nations possess. You need excellent software that you develop yourself. This software must detect whether there's anything on the moon that could prevent a safe landing. If the lander tips over on a rock, that's it. If the hatch doesn't open and the rover can't get out, that's it too. There are thousands of small things a mission depends on. Although the teams are highly motivated and consist of excellent space engineers who know exactly what they're doing, mistakes can still happen. That's why I believe that of all the teams in the competition, perhaps only one will actually succeed. But to be honest, that's not what it's really about. Just like the Olympics, it's not only about winning, it's about taking part. Teams from Germany are also participating. The most promising came from Berlin young people who want to fly to the moon. I just found the idea so incredible that as a private individual you could say, I'm going to build something privately financed and send it to the moon. That gave him the incentive to sit down with friends and acquaintances and discuss whether it made sense and whether it was feasible. Do you have to be NASA, or can you actually do this privately? The Berlin space startup developed and built a prototype moon rover. With it, the company won one of Google's milestone awards, $750,000 that was invested in building the business. Meanwhile, the young company has left the competition and is now working on the moon landing project under real market conditions. The most difficult part is deciding when you are actually finished taking the design tools away from the parties, engineers, and saying, this is what we're doing, because engineers are never really finished. We decide by accepting a certain level of risk. Let's say a 20% failure risk is acceptable. Then we examine the failure probability of every component, and when we reach that 20% mark, we say, okay, now we can start. The landing module and rover are currently under development. The system will be launched into orbit by a commercial rocket and then fly to the moon under its own power. When Kennedy announced the goal of landing a man on the moon in the 1960s, there weren't even the right rockets yet. NASA first had to develop ways to put people into space. Today we have high-resolution maps, physical data from the moon, all the Apollo material, rockets, and engines, so it should be much easier. The decisive factor is the right mixture of knowledge and experience. Thanks to the Apollo missions and technological progress, an unmanned moon landing is now feasible for private companies. Not cheap, but within reach. It is a completely new approach to conquering space. The way I see it, returning to the moon through private enterprise is the key to the future of human space travel. Music, the moon is there, and scientists, researchers, or even prospectors will seize the opportunity to set foot on its surface again. The moon has an abundance of resources, and the existence of frozen water has been proven. Music, the presence of raw materials, is another reason why excitement has returned. We have known for some time that the moon consists of about 40% oxygen. But the discovery of water has raised interest to a completely different level. Water is wonderful. You can split it into hydrogen and oxygen to make rocket fuel. You can drink it, and you can breathe the oxygen. So the discovery of water has given the whole endeavor a real boost. There is no erosion on the moon, no wind or rain to change the surface. It is a witness to the creation of our solar system. If we look at the moon today, we see countless craters, mountains, and flat surfaces that look as if they were flooded. It shows us that the moon has a history, impacts, lava flows, and geological activity. The moon is very close to us. Not only as a neighbor in space, but its history is also the history of our Earth. The origin of our moon is a truly unusual story in our solar system. This is the Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. About 60 million years later, a protoplanet struck one side of the Earth and tore a huge chunk out of it. The debris formed a disk around the Earth, which eventually became the moon. Due to tidal forces, the moon slowly moved outward about 3 centimeters per year, and it is still moving away today, now at about 380,000 kilometers from Earth. July 16th, 1969. Apollo 11 lifts off on its journey to the moon. For the first time, humans are about to walk on another world. A journey to the moon, not in a novel, not in science fiction, not in a film, but in reality. It is the greatest adventure in human history. Music. The space capsule covers 400,000 kilometers in just under 3 days. The lunar module Eagle separates from the command module. On board are Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Michael Collins remains in orbit. The race to the moon was purely political. The goal was to be the first. It was also a project of enormous prestige. The Americans made it their top priority, and so did the Russians. The Eagle heads toward its landing site in the Sea of Tranquility. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Music 15 minutes later, Buzz Aldrin also steps onto the surface. The most adventurous space enterprise ever undertaken. The Americans achieved this in just 8 years, from Kennedy's announcement in 1961 to the landing in 1969. 8 years is not much time. Building a highway junction in North Rhine-Westphalia took longer than landing on the moon. The Americans landed on the moon 6 times in total. The final mission was Apollo 17 with Eugene Cernan, Ron Evans, and Jack Schmitt. On December 11th, 1972, Cernan and Schmitt landed in the lunar module Challenger. Besides the American flag, they left their moon rover behind, And that is exactly where the Berlin space entrepreneurs want to land to examine the Apollo 17 vehicle. They want to see if it has been damaged by micrometeorites, radiation, or covered in dust, and why. The moon buggy is a historical relic and still belongs to NASA. There is scientific value in returning to analyze it, but also the risk of damaging something. So a balance must be found, and that is being worked out together with NASA. In the rock samples brought back by the last visitors, traces of water were discovered. Now we have found water at the poles in craters where the sun never shines. The temperature contrast is extreme, several hundred degrees where the sun hits and minus 200 degrees in the shadows. These harsh conditions make developing a moon rover extremely complex. The greatest challenge is the lunar night. Temperatures drop from 120 degrees Celsius to negative 180 degrees Celsius. Then there is radiation. Unlike the ISS, the moon has no magnetic field for protection. For any long-term stay, water is particularly important. To confirm its existence and map the moon precisely, NASA sent the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2009. It is still flying at an altitude of only 20 kilometers today. We now know there is water on the moon in two different forms, a thin layer across the surface and much more promising deposits of ice in the polar craters. The Chinese are currently the most active. Their multi-phase moon program includes orbiters, the Jade Rabbit rover, and sample return missions. A future phase could see Chinese astronauts landing on the moon. Their Chang'e 5 mission aims to bring back rock samples, something only the Americans and Russians have achieved before. The Russians also want to return. Together with the European Space Agency, they are planning a mission to the lunar South Pole to drill for water and investigate conditions for a research station. Of course, the moon is exciting. We have learned a lot from the Apollo samples, for example, that the moon was once completely molten with an ocean of lava. In their quest to go deeper into space, space travelers have rediscovered the moon as a valuable ally. The moon is not just a destination, but a stepping stone and testing ground for going to Mars. The International Space Station has shown that humans can live for long periods in weightlessness, but a journey to Mars would take years and present completely different challenges. An international station on the moon would be the next logical step. The Moon Village concept brings together governments, private companies, robots, and astronauts to work on a common goal. Scientists are developing habitats, 3D printing technologies using lunar soil, and self-replicating machines. Robots could autonomously build bases using local materials and solar energy. In the long term, this is a realistic way to create structures for research that can last for years. In the background, the journey to Mars always shapes our thinking. Producing rocket fuel on the moon from water could become a vital gas station for deeper space missions. Moon Village is an intermediate goal. What humanity ultimately wants is a Mars village. Conditions on Mars have been well studied. Compared to Mars, the moon is simpler, which makes it the perfect place to test technologies before attempting the much more difficult journey to the Red Planet. Private companies like SpaceX are pushing these developments forward with bold visions of colonizing Mars. Student projects and young startups are also playing an important role in advancing space technology. The moon holds strong attraction, not only for scientists, but also for those interested in its resources. Gold, platinum, and iridium may exist there. The question of whether we should exploit space resources is complex, but countries like Luxembourg are already preparing legal frameworks for space mining. State agencies are also considering the use of lunar resources as a foundation for further exploration of the solar system. The moon has always inspired human fantasy and science fiction. It remains a cultural symbol, a faithful companion, a light in the darkness, and a projection screen for our dreams and desires, mankind and the moon. This pale sphere in the night sky continues to drive our desire to leave our planet. It is the archive of our solar system, and understanding it helps us understand Earth better too. The last humans on the moon were Eugene Cernan and Jack Schmitt. When will the next people walk there? Probably in the mid-2020s. It won't be a big city, but a small research settlement for experiments and technology testing. And there will also be tourism. Man has the desire to venture into the depths of space. A research station on the moon would be a beginning, a first step, a milestone not just for science, but for all of humanity.